One of the common questions that is always been asked by our own friends who are non-believers, who do have no idea about our Christian faith, they always ask us, it has happened to me, I'm sure it has happened to most of us, at least some of us, why do you believe in mysteries? Because Christianity, as I always mention, is a mystery religion, and that means we believe in things that we are not able to fully understand, but can understand. That's the original meaning of the word mysterion, as I have described it earlier. Now, when someone asks me, why do we believe in mysteries? The only rational and a logical answer that I can give to that person is to say that I myself am a mystery. Because we do not know, for example, when you talk about science or technology or any way of understanding our life in its fullness, we do not know where we came from. We do not know why we are here, the reasons behind. None of us can give any plausible explanations or descriptions of our origin and the end. Of course, that is where religions come to help us, and Christianity has given us a certain sense of an understanding of where we came from and where we are going. So now, here we are celebrating the third Sunday of Easter. This is the time for us to reflect on the mystery of resurrection, which is the foundation of our Christian faith, Christian life. Now, the liturgy of the word brings to our attention today one of the appearances of the risen Lord to two of his disciples, as it is very commonly known as the Road to Amass. The story tells us by Luke is that Cleophas, who was a disciple of Jesus, who had gone to Jerusalem with him, who had been there, who saw his death and his crucifixion, is now leaving Jerusalem and returning to his own, maybe his own village, Emmaus. Now, when you take this text, the scripture scholars, especially the exegetes, point out something very interesting. But this is not very commonly known, but I would like to delve into it more today. The exegetes, that's those scholars, biblical scholars, tell us that there is another text that can be very closely compared and contrasted with Luke chapter 24, where Cleophas and the other disciple, whom the exegetes also say most probably it was his wife, husband and wife, who were returning to Emmaus from Jerusalem, who encountered the Lord. Now, in this text, which is found in Luke chapter 24, can be only compared with Genesis chapter 3 verse 7. Now, what does Genesis chapter 3 verse 7 says? Now, that goes to the creation story where Adam and Eve, after their temptation to eat the fruit from the tree of good and evil, they both take the food or the fruit and they eat what was given to them. And then the text says their eyes were open and they recognized that they were naked. Now, Genesis chapter 3 verse 7 can be directly compared with Luke chapter 24, where the two disciples, Cleophas and his wife, breaking the bread with the Lord, they take the food, they ate it, and their eyes were open, and they recognize it was the Lord. Now, when you look at it objectively, my dear friends, why is it that Luke is using the exact Greek wording which is found in Genesis chapter 3 verse 7? Because most probably he wants to convey to his audience, the readers, something about the mystery of life that you and I have, and the mystery of resurrection, which is part and parcel of the mystery of life that we already have. Now, what is this mystery? Now, when you think in terms of the experience of Adam and Eve in the garden, and also the experience that Cleophas and his wife had after the breaking of the bread, it points to a awareness, a consciousness. That's the closest word that we can come to, consciousness. Because in the first instance, Adam and Eve becomes conscious. Their eyes were open and they recognized that they were naked. They had something that was one with their Creator. We would normally call it a divine consciousness, or the scientific world today would talk about it as cosmic consciousness. But that consciousness which both of them had, having eaten the fruit, and their eyes were open and they recognized that they had lost it. So in the first instance, it was loss of that divine consciousness, losing of that divine cosmic consciousness, losing of that oneness with the Creator. That's what happened to them. Now, in Luke chapter 24, which is the gospel that we are reflecting today, it's the opposite that happens. What happens there? Cleophas and his wife breaking bread, they take the food and their eyes were open and they recognize, and it was the risen Lord. So you can see, in the first instance, it was loss of that divine consciousness. In the second instance, it's the gaining of that consciousness. Let me, in this instance, my dear friends, delve deeper into what does it mean to have this consciousness. Because once again, if I draw you back to the beginning, we are mysteries. You and I are mysteries. We have within ourselves that divine consciousness, which we as human beings, we have lost sight of. We have lost it. We sometimes as human beings, we have no idea that we carry within us the divinity that God has given to us, which the author of book of Genesis says that we have been created in the image and likeness of God. That means within us there is something that is deeply divine, that which is bringing us one with the Creator. That is our divine consciousness. Now, overcoming death, overcoming sin means, in that sense, to gain that consciousness within ourselves, that is within us, so that we come to realize what it means to be one with our Creator. That is gaining that cosmic consciousness. Let me explain to you a little bit about what it means to have this consciousness. Now, if you try to understand the human person, the mystery of the human person, from the perspective of biology or the perspective of psychology, one of the most puzzling questions for those who study the human personality, the human biology, scientifically, they say the unsolvable problem is this human consciousness. The great proponent of theistic scientific view in the world today, world-renowned scientist John Lennox, former professor of mathematics in the Oxford University. Now, when he writes, he says that there are clear mysteries that we are not able to unravel. One is the mystery of gravity. Now, he's a mathematician. What he says is that the law of gravity is only a partial description of the mystery of gravity. Nobody can explain what gravity is. That's still a mystery. And also another mystery that he talks about is the mystery of consciousness. Consciousness is something that we can never be able to fully explain. We can partially describe according to him. Now, in a way, what has happened to all of us as human beings. We are caught up in this quagmire of our human existence, that we have lost that common divine consciousness, that cosmic consciousness that connects us with our Creator, connects us with everyone else whom we live with, connects us with the entire creation that God has given to us, along with ourselves. Now, losing that is the reason why we are not able to be one with each other. Looking at it from a purely a psychological point of view, my dear friends, it is always said, people fight with each other. People find it difficult to get along with each other, mainly because they do not know themselves. If I know who I am, if I know the darkness within, if I know the baggage that I carry within myself, if I know the wounds that I have as an individual, then it is more likely that I will not go and fight with another person. I will not find fault with another person, because I know who I am, and the more I know myself, less chances that I will try to tread on another person's life. And so, if we have this healing of our inner selves, coming to know of our own self, in that growing of that cosmic common consciousness, this world will be a much better place to live. If we have the consciousness, we will not cut trees, because that consciousness is also found in trees. We will not harm animals, because that consciousness is in animals. Psychology today talks about it so very strongly and so very clearly. That is why there is more and more awareness and consciousness about protecting the environment, protecting animals, protecting the entire world. That is exactly what we are going through now, saying that even this pandemic that we are going through now is a result of the breaking of that consciousness, that relationship. Now, if that is loss of cosmic consciousness, and resurrection is something that comes second, that comes along with it, because when we have healed ourselves from within, when I have come to know myself, when I have become conscious of my own divine nature within myself, then it's more likely that along with others who have the same experience, that we will be more and more witnesses or people who experience resurrection here and now, before it happens at the end of times. Amen.